Hey, you're tuned in to Live at 5. And before we jump into today's guest, I just want to remind you that this show is only possible because of the generosity and support of amazing people like you. Continue to support us by subscribing to this YouTube channel, clicking the link to donations and merchandise in the bio below, and by spreading the word about our shows. Thanks again, and enjoy. Hey, and welcome to Live at 5. It's again, I can't believe that I'm saying this for so many days in a row, because before we were quarantined, and I'm not trying to look for any sympathy, because I know that it's a very desperate time, but it's a beautiful sunny afternoon in London, and the good part of that is that it would be even worse to be stuck at home when it's usual London weather. So that's good. And as I said before, this is Live at 5, but it's a slightly different kind of Monday idea that we've had. And I'm going to be kind of going solo today and playing some clarinet and playing you some tracks that I have kind of highlighted from different gigs. Well, it's actually the same gig, but tracks that I've highlighted that are kind of interesting for me from a clarinet point of view. And we'll kind of dig into some nitty-gritty clarinet stuff, which is kind of what I do. But we are being joined by our steadfast, rock-solid producer, Darcy O'Connor from Clapton. Looking good, Darce?
Feeling good, Giacomo.
How's your day going? What's going on?
Yeah, it's not too bad this Easter Monday. Just having a sort of gander out the window. It's very sunny up here in Clapton as well today. Beautiful afternoon. Might go for a walk in the park afterwards.
Wow, now that just sounds so pleasant. You know what you could do, which I did.
What's that?
Well, you can raid the Easter candy sale.
Oh,
which is going strong. So, I mean,
yeah, good point.
This year I took it easy. I only got 13 dark chocolate Easter eggs for myself. But I mean,
did you let SG have any this year? Because I spent Easter with you last year. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
it was really nice.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun. Yeah, we had a picnic in the park. Yeah, that was fun. So I think the thing about the Easter eggs, in the store right now, and this is crazy. I think that Easter eggs are the only thing that don't have a limit on how many you can buy.
Oh, right.
So you can buy as many chocolate Easter eggs as you want. You can't buy as many eggs as you want, but you can buy chocolate Easter eggs. But let me tell you, they don't make a good omelet. Darce, before you start thinking.
Maybe my Easter eggs I got.
Oh, yeah, maybe yours. Yeah. I knew what you were thinking there. I knew you were thinking, this could be a second market for us or something. I don't know. How do you want to frame this? I guess we were kind of tossing back and forth some ideas earlier today. So I think it would be cool if you fire some questions at me, and then we play some music and just keep it lax and kind of flow through it.
Sure.
But this is a clarinet.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the gold one?
The gold one is a soprano saxophone.
Oh. Okay.
My favorite.
I'm just gonna have to adjust some of my notes here. Sorry.
Cross out golden. My favorite Craigslist ad of all time was a picture of one of these in a case, with the ad on the top that said "Black flute with case."
Amazing. Definitely, someone's just found it in the attic after their grandfather's passed away or something, and
that's what it is.
And that's what it is. It's the black flute. All right. Well, so yeah, I mean, one thing that's come up on the show a few times in speaking with the other guests and having them send in their own solo performances, is how many of our guests have been able to elevate their solo performances by almost imagining or simulating that they're playing with a band. So I know you've been practicing some stuff over the last couple of weeks. What have you been practicing in particular, and how have you been approaching that from that perspective of sort of, imagining that you are playing with a band where you're almost compensating for the rhythm section, and the other horns while you're practicing?
Yeah. Well, I have a room in my apartment where I have like drums set up and a bass, and it's like circuit training. I
Yeah.
just run between and it's very difficult. I mean, you know, people like Jacob Collier who use computers have really mastered this. But see, for me, I'm not really a computer guy, so
No.
I can only just play one at a time. So I kind of play a little drums, and then um, no, but actually, the best thing. That's a great question, and it's a real, it's I think, with all that's going on, the thing from the real world that I miss the most is the social interaction of playing music, and I think that's why I gravitated towards jazz, and I think that's why a lot of jazz musicians end up playing jazz and not another kind of music, because they usually have great technique and they could kind of apply it to other forms of music, but it's really a kind of music that allows you to be spontaneous and kind of converse musically with people. So, not being able to do that, you kind of think, oh well, I don't really sound good on my own. And now I think that there are a few things you can do, as a player, to kind of keep that kind of image going in your head. There's definitely, you can think of the best gigs that you've had, and you can think of the kind of environment that you were surrounded by, and just try to imagine how you played in that environment. And I've been trying to do that, with a metronome, or kind of playing along with records, and and sometimes the bands have different configurations, and I think that it's, sometimes I'll be playing with like a Django style kind of gypsy swing band, which would be two guitars and a bass, or that kind of rhythm section. Then I'd be playing with Kansas Smitty's, which is kind of more traditional drums, bass, piano rhythm section. And then the thing that I sent you, the three tracks that we have that we can dip into if we want to, are kind of a different thing altogether, with just a rhythm section of bass and piano. And now I say rhythm section, um, and I don't know if that's the best term, but I know that people understand it, so I'm going to use it anyway. But the whole, just to clarify, if we're going to be talking about this whole kind of playing by yourself thing, and kind of being an unaccompanied soloist in a time when you can't play with other people, every instrument is in the rhythm section. I mean, the horns are in the rhythm section as much as the drums are in the rhythm section. It's and the horns can play just as much melody as the drums can play melody. And
Sure.
I really do mean that. I'm not just saying that, to be kind of insightful to drummers, but actually you just, keep the beat. It really is a thing that you notice in the best bands, that everybody is sharing that role. But anyway, go back to, for all intents and purposes, those are the kinds of settings that I imagine myself in. And I'll start with, I think I'll play a little bit to kind of see if
Yeah,
I can
definitely.
exemplify what I'm talking about, and then maybe we can play one of the examples. But let's just think about the kind of, I think that for me, the most the easiest one to envision, because it's so constant, is the kind of Django Reinhardt gypsy jazz style, which is one that I really kind of dug into that when I first got to London. I was really, really interested in that style of music. And the reason that it's great for a simulated rhythm section kind of, or simulated playing experience is that the guitarists play, the typical style is to play all four beats. So you'll have a rhythm guitarist playing, and so when you're going along playing, you can go. And you're hearing all those beats. Jump, 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 jump. Now, something to think about with that. Okay, so when you have the four beats going, the first thing to practice is to link in with that. So as a horn player, I want you, and I'm going to ask you if you hear it afterwards.
Sure.
But I want you to hear the rhythm guitar when I'm playing. So I'm playing over all of me, right? So imagine that we're at Smitty's and I'm counting in the band. 1, 2, 1. So do you hear that?
Definitely. You feel that rhythm, like it's almost like a phantom rhythm, if that makes sense. Like you can sort of imagine it there. And the further you go along, and I imagine the more you practice and the more that you listen to this kind of music, you can almost hear the chords underneath it when you're just playing the melody.
Well, exactly, and that's the next thing that I would go to when I'm playing by myself is that the thing that you're missing in if you're a horn player, and obviously this is different if you play drums or you play bass, you're missing a different element of the pie, right? But the thing that you're missing as a horn player is you're missing the rhythm, and then you're missing chords.
Yep.
Right? Because you are the part that's the kind of melodic spice.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that, I think about getting the satisfaction of playing with a band. I'm trying to play the time, the chunk, 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 and I'm trying to play kind of an emulation or simulated chord sequence. So the way I'll get into that is I'll be going. So you're kind of playing all of the things that I would want to hear. So when I get to the second chord, so the first chord is this, and the second chord is the three dominant, but I want a flat 9, so I always play. This would just be like a regular. But I like this note. And it's funny, you practice like that enough, and that's what I would have wanted from a guitar player playing with me.
Right.
So I'm sitting in my room and I'm playing that, and I'm thinking, well, I'm getting the satisfaction of playing with Kurosh or Harry Diplock by getting that.
How would you practice? I mean, you've just used a great example there of what you would expect or you would like a guitarist to do for you. How do you practice your flexibility and be like, how can I do what a guitarist might want me to do in this section?
Right. You should never do what a guitarist. Well, it's. I think that one of the things that I've realized over the years, and I used to go and hear Pat LaBarbera play when I was a kid. Great saxophone player, huge Coltrane head. He's actually from. He lives in Toronto, but I can't remember where he grew up. But anyway, played in the Buddy Rich band for 7 years. Played in Elvin Jones's band for 7 years. Wow. Massive Coltrane head, and he was saying, I remember because everybody who played jazz in high school, it's kind of like a fringe club, so you get a little defensive. You think that everybody thinks that they're so cool, and they're like calling other students out. Like Will Satch has this terrible story of this. It's all these kids come in with attitude, and they start saying, "Man, you don't know the words to the ballads. Do you even want to play?
My God!
You don't know. Oh, you don't know the turnaround on Lady Bird. Like, do you even? This is. It's like okay, really? Like, who made you? It's the Jazz Police thing. So one of the Jazz Police things that people kind of always seem to frown upon that I don't agree with is verbal communication, right? Because if you're in a band, okay, like people always used to tell stories about, oh yeah, Miles, if he didn't like what you were doing, he wouldn't tell you, he just wouldn't book you again. It's like, well, okay, well that's one way of doing it, but you could also just say, it's like say what you didn't like. Maybe I don't know, might be an idea. So anyway, Pat was talking about this chord sequence on some song, and I can't remember which song it was, but he said, Coltrane used to ask McCoy to play those changes when he was playing, and I was like, whoa, like Coltrane, like asked for some, like he actually asked for something. Like I thought he was just like God, he just like did it, and then the world followed, and I think that's a really important point in bands that, yeah, I mean, if one of the guitar players wanted me to play a certain chord there, I used to play with this band called Man Overboard. Jean-Marie, that guy, right? Remember him?
Yeah.
And they
Ballroom
play
Cats, right?
different chords. Huh?
He's in Ballroom Cats now. Is that Jean-Marie?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They used to play different changes on All of Me as well, and it was just, hey, play this chord. It's like, oh, cool, okay, I see. So fine, if that's the way you all play that song, then I'll do it that way as well. So yeah, I mean that kind of flexibility is more difficult when you're on your own because you only know what you want to hear.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's something I've really been getting into.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll just play a whole thing through in that style, and then maybe talk a little bit more about different things that I'm thinking.
Definitely. Go for it.
Okay.
Well done.
That's the best applause I've ever got. Thanks, Darcy. But so when I'm playing that, I'm trying to think. Okay, I'm keeping my time going, right? And then if you're improvising, well, you start to look for different avenues to go down. And one of the ones that I, try to exercise as much as I can when I'm not with a band is silence. So what happens all of a sudden when you're not marking all the beats? So I'm playing along, I'm playing all the beats.
Yeah.
What happens when you start to do, this was, Robin, who was on the show, he sent me a recording of this great gypsy jazz guitar player playing minor blues, kind of in the style of Django. And, guitar players have like shredder syndrome, So it's because if you don't have to breathe, if you never have to breathe, then you never have to stop playing.
Sure.
You just keep going. So, and that was one of the reasons that Django was so great. And all these people that kind of copy Django, they kind of leave out all of the lyrical stuff. They don't remember that actually the thing that made him so magnetic as a player was that he was incredibly lyrical. And then he had all the like virtuosic ability as well. So this guy's actually going for the lyrical thing, which is really beautiful and it's a really cool idea, but it doesn't happen, right? So you're watching it and you're like, okay, it's cool that he's trying to be melodic, but actually you need a better melody, And I was watching it and I thought, wow, this is such a great video because it shows how difficult it is to actually play lyrically. And when I say lyrically, I mean just like without kind of the kind of flashy technical stuff,
Sure.
Just playing a nice melody over a song.
And that needs space and rests and room to breathe.
Yeah, because you wouldn't, if you're trying to be melodic, we say melodic, it's like of melody. You think of singers, right? You think of like, if you think of the melody of a song, you think of the person singing the top line, right? So it got me thinking about how to kind of integrate that into the routine. So I'm playing my my rhythm guitar, right, and then I'm also playing my chords, right. But then what I need over the top of that is my melody line, So you have to feel the beats in between. So I'm going so. Trying to keep those. Was that in time? I don't even know.
No, I was so out of time. You wouldn't. No, it was very good. And I imagine that's where it goes beyond simulating the rhythm section, for lack of a better term, to literally having to hear the rhythm section when they aren't there.
Yeah. Can you Do you feel like that's coming through to you? Do
It,
you
do,
hear
it,
that?
do, it does to me. Like I
Yeah.
can, not only can I hear guitar, but I can hear where the room for the drums would be, or the room for a fill would be, or where the bass might be walking. Like it's all there. And like you say, like when you give it more space to breathe, that's when that sort of stuff rises to the top.
Exactly. So I think this would be a good time to jump into some of the tracks that we have, and it'll allow us to kind of move to a different part of the discussion. So let's go to those. Let's go to what track titles do you have
So
there?
we've got
Red Planet.
Red Planet, Train River, and Swamp People.
Let's play the Swamp People.
Sure.
This is the Swamp People. I believe it was written by Bob Brookmeyer, and it's was played by the Jimmy Jufrey Three back in the late '50s, early '60s. And this is a recording from the Soho Live Festival last year that I did with Kit Downs on piano and Tom Farmer on bass. So, and once again, you're listening to Live at 5. We're here with you every afternoon at 5 o'clock. Make sure you follow this channel for updates on more about what we're doing, and click and share the link in the bio below. played by Tom Farmer on bass, Kit Downs on piano, and me, yours truly, on black flute. And bass clarinet was on that one as well.
Did you flick between them?
Yeah, I started on bass clarinet, and then I thought, this is a bad decision. No, I think what was going on with that gig was that the tune before had been on bass clarinet, and I kind of wanted to bridge it over. It's funny with switching instruments. It's not. I don't find it difficult from a technique perspective. I find it difficult from a kind of conceptual perspective, because just imagine if all of a sudden, if you were a singer and all of a sudden your voice went from being like a low bass baritone to being a soprano.
Mm-hmm.
You would think, oh, what am I supposed to do now? This is, oh no, it's all gone wrong. So we were talking about, another kind of thing that I like to dig into when I'm practicing by myself, and that's just different types of playing blues. So you have, it's one of my pet peeves, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but I always have to. It's an annoying clarification, but it does make you understand more. I always, when I was a kid, I kind of didn't realize what the difference between jazz and blues were, because jazz and blues were always in the same section, and they were always on the same festivals, and such and such plays blues and jazz. Well, it's like it's not the same thing. That's why they have different names. They have completely different heritage. And they also have different. I think that the easiest way to kind of analyze them is that they have different purposes. It's like it makes you the music that is blues makes you feel differently to music that is jazz, and that's not to say that they don't share elements. And I think one of the elements that they definitely share is the element of rhythm. Rhythm is super important in both, and consistency of rhythm and time feel, and a lot of the times they both have swing in them, and they both have syncopation. And other than that, jazz is fundamentally based around improvising. And so when you're improvising, you can take from any language you want. If you were making up a sentence on the spot, or you were writing poetry, you could write poetry in French if you wanted to. You could try and write poetry in Russian. You wouldn't know what it meant unless you spoke those. But that would be improvising. Know. And so I think what I kind of am interested in is trying to kind of borrow from blues vocabulary and put it into my jazz playing. And so, but
as many great jazz musicians have done over the years.
Exactly. And you'll have the more the more vocal qualities of improvising over kind of blues chord progressions are usually taken from great blues singers and blues people of the past. But then there's a whole other approach to blues playing, which is the more jazz approach, which is kind of what you were saying earlier about just breaking down the chords, breaking down the chords of the system, and just playing through those chords. So I like to do both. Playing the chords of a blues structure doesn't mean you're playing the blues, right?
Right.
If you play the kind of more vocal stuff, and you play the kind of, the gut-wrenching, cries of, a blues man like Bill Brunsey, or, Rosetta Tharpe, or people, that really Muddy Waters, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're playing
Belly.
blues. Lead Belly, great. But if you're playing the other stuff, it's still good too. It's just not, that denomination. So I'll just play some blues. I think would be a good idea.
Amazing. It was beautiful, man.
That's some blues.
So what? So I feel like you went in and out of those two sort of different approaches that you just spoke about. Do you want to sort of break down, some of those points that you were going for that more lyrical storytelling almost kind of vibe that you hear in blues singers, and the sort of when you're breaking down, going over the chords?
Yeah, I think that for me the singing one is more difficult. So that's when I get nervous, when I start to try and do that. Because I think, when I listen to those people, sing and play, I just feel like it's so honest and it's, it's, you don't want to be, you want to feel it, you don't want to be a character actor. You don't want to be there, saying like, oh, I'm doing my impression of this now. And then it's like, whereas if you embody that person or that kind of feeling, it's just a lot more difficult to be sincere when you're doing that. Whereas if you're talking about playing through the chords, that doesn't seem as foreign to me.
Sure.
So. That's just playing the chords. That's not playing the blues. That's playing the chords.
Yeah.
And so yeah, to break it down, I think that the meat of the kind of the thing that people would like to listen to, and actually, in turn you want to listen to, because remember, this whole thing is about playing by yourself. That's the kind of the whole focus of this episode. It's just like, how do I enjoy playing by myself, when I don't have a band to play with? It's like, well, the lyrical stuff, the blues part is the part that everybody wants to listen to.
Yeah.
The technical part, and I mean, you listen to any great player from the kind of whatever the golden age of jazz is, or great players of jazz and blues music, and they really are weighted towards that kind of the magnetic part of the playing. John Coltrane is a great example. People think of John Coltrane as sheets of sound, but you go back and listen to that album, Coltrane Plays the Blues, and he's playing tons of really kind of emotive, lyrical stuff on the saxophone, just holding long notes and making melodies. Charlie Parker is a great example of that. We were talking about him yesterday. I mean, that Parker's Mood, great blues. He's playing blues. That's blues.
Yeah.
So when I kind of try and throw in the chord stuff, it's to kind of wake everybody up, and I kind of, for me, it's also just it's like a little flourish of kind of it's like a great punchline,
Yeah, sure.
in a story. It's like it's a really good story, but you have this moment of comic relief that kind of brings everybody back to the front, and they're right there ready to go. So it's a very kind of psychological game that I think we play with audiences and with ourselves to keep everybody interested.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, why don't we listen to one more of those tracks that you sent through to me today to sort of see us out for this afternoon. Do you want to tell me a bit about Red Planet?
Yeah, sure. So this is actually a song that was introduced to me by Honeybee, Alex Bolton, who who's hopefully sleeping right now because he's in New Zealand. But I hope he tunes in later, because this was when he started working at the bar, it was such a cool time because he brought all his records down, and he was just like so happy to show me all this new music, and probably you too.
Oh man, absolutely. My education was
mine.
just hanging out with that guy, making drinks and listening to records.
Yeah, exactly. So he brought this record down of a guy called Pee Wee Russell, who's was a New Orleans style trad clarinetist, and Alex put it on, and he was like, check this out, because Pee Wee Russell was trying out some new stuff, and he'd basically gotten in with this younger group of musicians. I think the trombone player is called Marshall Brown. That seems to ring a bell. I can't remember. Something like that.
I think there were a few Marshall Brown records, going around, so that sounds right. Yeah.
Something like that. And they got him into this Coltrane stuff, which was like really avant-garde. And he can barely, play the melody on some of these things. But I really admire that a player who was so kind of limited in what his output was, he was kind of like a trad clarinet player. He was used to playing, he played well, but he was used to playing, that set of music. And then all of a sudden he's in this like very avant-garde kind of band that's trying out different harmonies and different melodies. So yeah, that's a super interesting record. And this is from that. This is called Red Planet. Are we going to... back live at 5. That was Red Planet or Miles Mode. We're not sure if it was written by Eric Dolphy or by John Coltrane, but it first appeared in the world on the Live from the Village Vanguard disc. And Clive Fleckner has pointed out rightfully that it is from Pee Wee Russell and Marshall Brown record called The New Groove of Pee Wee Russell. We had a question. What's the question, Dars?
Yeah, so it's from Jörg Schmitz. Hi, Jörg. I've seen you. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I've seen you tune in a few times over the last few weeks, so thank you very much for your return patronage.
Thanks, Jörg.
Giacomo, it's a question for you, surprisingly, and not me. And he says that as a clarinet beginner, your playing seems to be so perfect and so mature. So which former goals or dreams do you have musically? I think what he means by that is, what are your musical goals and how have they changed over the years?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, big question, but I'll see what I can do. But thanks for your compliment, and I'm glad it sounds mature to you. That's good. And
I think it sounds quite immature, really, if you know the guy.
Thanks, Stars. You got my back there. So. No Easter eggs for you this year. So I think that in terms of musical goals, you can never be too fluent on your instrument. It's like learning vocabulary. There are always more words. There's always more to say. There's always more. There are always more kind of avenues to explore. So for me, I'm always thinking about finding new patterns on my instrument, new ways to play, and I'm also, another musical goal is to play with a lot of musicians and kind of find that social balance of, for me, it's a big musical goal is to play with people, so and I think that's always been a goal, to learn things from other people. So for example, one of my musical goals on clarinet might be to get more of my diminished kind of scale patterns together. But actually, one of my goals as a musician is to play with more drummers and learn more about rhythm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, Stars?
Yeah, no, definitely. And you see that, you have that thirst for knowledge by wanting to play with different people from different cultures, playing different cultured music. We've had Joao and jazz and, all these sorts of amazing people that are bringing these different sounds into the London scene, and just talking with them, let alone playing with them, I can only imagine how much that sort of adds another dimension to your playing.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's time to wrap up today's Live at 5, but we have our record of the week, which is...
The day.
Sorry, I said week, meant day. The weeks have become days, the days become months, and the record of the day is The Easy Way by Jimmy Giuffre, which is here. And Jimmy Giuffre is kind of the guy who really inspired me to play jazz clarinet in the first place.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
go into that a
really.
little bit. I didn't realize that.
Well, it was mainly because it really had to do with his sensibility, in terms of putting groups together. Because you could, he was a great saxophone player too, and I'm into playing saxophone, and that's another thing that I really like to do. But he put together groups. You could tell that he was a clarinet player first, and he put together groups that made the clarinet sound good. And he especially used to play in this low register of the clarinet. And the Benny Goodmans and the Artie Shaws are always going
quite high.
Yeah. And I always thought, man, this is the good bit, isn't it? And I remember listening to those Jimmy Giuffre records and thinking, he's gotten rid of the drums. That's how he's able to play low and quiet.
Because there's no cancellation between like the toms and the kick or anything.
No, and it's also and also just a volume thing. You know, clarinet's not a loud instrument. So so anyway, this album is called The Easy Way, and make sure you listen to the version of Mac the Knife on there. It's a really really great rendition. So thank you for listening to Live at 5. Make sure you subscribe. It really helps us out if you do that. And also click the link and share it in our bio.
And let us know what you thought of this In the Shed sort of segment that we tried out today in the comments. That it really helps us to sort of plan the weeks when we know what you guys want to see.
Exactly. Thank you, and thank you, Darcy O'Connor. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon with our guest, Pedro Segundo, amazing drummer and Portuguese sensation, who's living in New York at the moment. So we're looking forward to catching up with him, and we hope to see you there. Have a good night.
Thanks again for listening to Live at 5. Remember to subscribe to this channel and click on the link in the description to see where you can donate, sign up for a Smitty's membership, or buy our records and merch. See you tomorrow. Thanks again.